Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, we'll be talking about astrology and schizophrenia. Now, most of you may know schizophrenia is basically it's like a mental illness or mental disorder. A lot of it can be really strongly connected with imagined things that may be imagined, difficulty distinguishing reality from what isn't. And I believe sometimes it could give very distorted reality. Now, I mean, there are various kinds of schizophrenia. I mean, you have like the paranoid schizophrenia and various other ones. Talking about schizophrenia in general in this segment, I'm going to just really get into the fundamentals and basics of this in this segment. And in a future video, I might talk about it more extensively and in depth. But this one, just the basics of it, I mean, as far as the zodiac signs go, if we're just talking about signs that might have a greater propensity toward it, I would say that Gemini and Pisces would be the two that would come to mind because, I mean, when you look at like schizophrenic, like when people talk about it like in another sense, like using schizophrenic in another way, like I've said, like that quarterback on that team seems to be schizophrenic, like some, a quarterback that's very fickle, temperamental, so to speak, in terms of his play good one day, not play so good the next. Gemini is known for a very contradictory behavior. It is a dual sign. They're known for their vacillation and they're very mercurial. You look at Pisces as well, and I think Pisces could be very susceptible to this as well. I mean, Pisces being ruled by Neptune, Neptune I would say would be the planet is the one that's most synonymous, I would say, with schizophrenia. And Pisces again is really, I mean, you symbolically it is the two fish swimming in opposite direction. And like Gemini, they're very mercurial and changeable. They have vacillating nature. In theory, as I've stated in previous videos, and I mean, I concur with this, that Pisces are really like they're the amalgamation of the previous 11 zodiac signs. They just got so much in their makeup and their astrological composition. They just got, I mean, it's almost like they can exhibit many different sides and different personalities. This is Pisces and Gemini, I really think are unequivocally the two zodiac signs that are most synonymous, or ones that would have the greatest propensity to us. Now, they may have studies that might say something different than what I've said based on sun sign, but you have to remember that you also got to look at Mercury and the moon and the ascendant as well. It's like that study that people often will talk about, and you'll see it on Facebook posts, the one that talks about the most common criminal, or the one that the FBI has apprehended the most, and it's the sun sign Cancer. Well, they're not factoring in the moon and the ascendant for obvious reasons, because of course when you're apprehending people and when you're doing it, you're doing like, if you're doing a study on that, you're just, all you're looking at is the birth date. That's the only thing that most people are going to look at, that what's on file. I mean, the detectives aren't going to ask obviously for the time of birth of these culprits for obvious reasons, because it's not significant to them, and most of them are probably not interested in astrology. But going back to astrology and schizophrenia, I think some basic things I would say would be, I mean, as far as indicators in a chart, could be Neptune in the 12th house obviously would stand out to me, because Neptune is the planet that seems to be synonymous with schizophrenia. The 12th house is the house of mental illness, is the house of imagination. Schizophrenia, lots of this could be accompanied by hearing things, imagining like voices in the head. If you have, I mean, like say, Mercury in the 12th house as well. I mean, this could be imagined, communication, so to speak. Neptune in adverse aspect to Mercury can also, I would think, be an indicator. And these things I'm saying, I don't think by themselves are an indicator for schizophrenia, but I would think you would have to have like maybe 3 anyway of these indicators. Now, someone I know that does have been diagnosed with schizophrenia, he has he has a mutable T-square configuration, at least a long mutable T-square configuration in his chart. which involves Mercury, Neptune, and Mars. They're immutable signs. The mutable signs seem to be the ones that have the greater propensity for this kind of behavior, this kind of mental condition, because it seems to coincide with more of a fearful energy, and also changeable mercurial energy. And the thing about, and he's got Mercury as the focal point of that mutable T-square configuration. Now, another thing might be a little misconception. I think I saw something online, and I didn't look at this that extensively, and they were talking about schizophrenia that seemed to be more prevalent based on some astrological study. It's that they seemed, or at least I don't know if they actually did a full study of it, or they're just stating and speculating that the sun signs that were introverted, presumably they meant the feminine signs, the earth and water sun signs would have the greatest proclivity toward that. They feel that there's something with introversion connected with this. That's fine and everything, but again, they're not factoring in other elements of the chart. I believe not the as far as the ascendant and moon, other things as well in the chart. A lot of those people that may have had their sun signs and feminine signs may have had extroverted ascendants, may have had say fire, air ascendants, or moon signs that were in extroverted signs. And also too, if you're going to include introversion, I don't know enough about schizophrenia to say, is the introversion, is there a connection with that? Maybe there's a number of people that have succumbed to schizophrenia in their life that they do become very introverted, and but if that is the case, then it's more than just the sun sign, whether it's feminine or not, that can play a role in that. If you have a preponderance of planets, say, on the bottom half of your chart, that could be a more introverted, that could still indicate certain introversion, introspective energy. And I mean, that person might have a Leo ascendant and a sun, even the sun and moon in masculine signs. But if that same person that has the sun, ascendant, and moon in all masculine signs, but they have the majority of that planetary energy on the bottom half of the chart, they could be more introverted than the typical person that has the sun, moon, and ascendant in masculine signs. And if people, and also schizophrenia, some side effects can be, the speech might not always be coherent, and they might be ambiguous, or might say things that are not readily understood. Of course, Mercury strongly afflicted can be some examples. Mercury in Pisces, or if you have it, whether it's afflicted strongly, but if it's by sign, retrograde, intercepted, if you have a number of these things and strongly afflicted, an adverse aspect to Neptune can be certain indicators of this. But like I said, I would think that you would probably need at least 3 of these indicators for schizophrenia, because to actually have a greater chance of having it. I don't think one by itself would do it, because you figure, like, for example, you're going to have around 1 in 12 people on average with Neptune in the 12th house in their natal chart, and it's not going to mean that they are going to be necessarily schizophrenic. I mean, I'm not sure all those people don't have it. I think only in the United States you have like maybe about 1 in 5 people that actually have been diagnosed with a mental illness. So you understand what I'm saying. There's not even 1 in 5 people that would have schizophrenia. And so you understand what I'm getting at with that. I mean, it's really, and I don't even think 1 in 12. I mean, I don't think 1 in 12 people probably have schizophrenia. If you're just talking about roughly 20% of the U.S. population that even have a mental illness, period. So anyway, so going back to this again, and you're talking about schizophrenia in astrology, it's just something where you really, a lot of it is, and again, it's not just one one isolated thing in a person's chart. They say that schizophrenia is something that can be accompanied in times by other mental illnesses. Now, let's say, like, I think obsessive compulsive disorder was one example they gave. Now, let's say if somebody has like Pluto in the 12th house and are making an adverse aspect to Mercury or even their third house cusp, I mean, you could have like these other, maybe conditions that could be accompanying it. And the thing about it as well, and it's really just about understanding, what actually, astrologically, what could be connected with it, not just looking at one lone thing in one's natal chart for this. And as far as transits go, if there's some transit saying that happens. I think if I'm not mistaken, the schizophrenia seems to be more prevalent. At least the onset is earlier on in life, like age 16 to 30. You want to look that up and confirm that. But I guess you could say, transits may play a role in that. If you have transit Neptune entering the 12th house and it's making adverse aspect to your natal Mercury, it's squaring your third house cusp, or what happens is it becomes involved, or it makes some kind of mutable T-square configuration. Say if you have, for example, if you had like Mercury squaring your moon, and then transit Neptune opposes your Mercury at that time. That could be, one, certain, example. If you want to talk about potential transits, that could be the onset. I would even think transit Neptune conjuncting one's natal Mercury could be an example. But it would be more, if this would be more prevalent if it happened at an earlier age. I think again it's like age 16 to 30 seems to be a common onset interval as far as the age goes, but you want to check that and confirm it to be precise. But I think it's around those ages. So anyway, people, well, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment for astrology and schizophrenia. And until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.